We will now move on to our next speaker. She is Angelina Saunders. She is in grade 12 and will be delivering a talk titled Forgotten Spaces. Enjoy. Over to you, Angelina.
Good evening. The spaces we inhabit matter. The spaces people used to inhabit matter. I learned this on a trip to Lüderitz, a coastal Namibian town neighboring the ghost town Kolmanskorp. Now, I have a bit of an obsession with historical spaces and buildings, so I went there with the intention of visiting this abandoned town consumed by the dunes. However, Lüderitz proved to be more significant, because this was the previous location of one of the world's first concentration camps, Shark Island. Much like the final solution in Germany, the camp was a final attempt to eradicate the Herero and Namakwa people following the enforcement of hit squads that were akin to the Einsatzgruppen. Now, when I came into the town, I already felt uneasy. However, when I discovered that I was staying on the exact street where this history had unfolded, I felt this inexplicable heaviness settle in me. When I went to bed that night, I had this surreal experience where it felt as though I could hear the screams of the previous inhabitants. And to make it worse, a recreational camp has been built on top of this site. And the only nod to any form of history in this area in Shark Island is a memorial to a German colonist. What I learned from this is that spaces, whether symbolic or wholly with the remnants of history, are imperative to our existence. For a town that is ironically dedicated to its history as a mining town, this history was disturbingly ignored. That space, despite lacking any evidence of the camp today, represents a history that needs to be told. A history simply as it was, and a history that certainly does not deserve to be treated with such disrespect. Spaces and buildings can play a large role in our emotional and spatial memory. An experiment was done asking for candidates to associate emotions with spaces in their neighborhoods. And this was done during the time of hard lockdown, meaning that in people's desperation to connect with the outside world, they may have conscientized their emotions with spaces outside of their homes more. What can be drawn from this is that people certainly hold strong emotional ties with spaces, although it may be unconscious. The hippocampus, which is responsible for memory, holds emotional memories the easiest. So, if emotional memories are the most held ones, it can be supposed that a large portion of our spatial awareness is calcified through emotional and experiential memory. This highlights the importance of spaces as physical representations of our experiences. An antithesis to Lüderitz is the Burgkarp. The buildings were rented out to slaves who were eventually allowed to own the properties. Beforehand, the buildings were painted a pure white. However, upon ownership, they were painted in bright colors as an expression of the residents' freedom. This symbol has been immortalized and is a means of addressing this history and the suffering and pain associated with it. Today, the Burgkarp is a flourishing cultural hub, and despite extant issues, it could be argued that it is on the path towards addressing its history and growing its community. Honoring the history of historical spaces is not only a socio-political necessity, it is deeply interlinked with the ability to develop communities despite issues and challenges posed by the past. This is especially significant in spaces such as the Burgkarp and Lüderitz. Nothing beside remains. Percy Bysshe Shelley's Ozymandias speaks of the remains of an ancient city in which a decaying sovereign sculpture asks for its legacy to be remembered. Should we let our history crumble if it is too painful to bear? We have a duty towards our history, as I believe I have a duty towards the people of Shark Island. Not only are our lives chainmailed with a multiplicity of stories, but also the significance of the past is imperative to humanity as a unit. For in the shadow of history we live on, oblivious of the wise shade it has cast upon us. Thank you.